Welcome back, everyone. It's official. The ice is out. Anybody who looked at Lake George in January and February thought the best estimate, maybe July, and it went.
It went on the day it usually goes. It's
April, how does it know?
April 15th. It's the average date for all of recorded history.
Well, maybe Lake George knows that itself, but also Walt knows it. This is Walt Lender, and he is the executive director of the Lake George Association, the mothership organization of Lake George. So first, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back.
It's nice to be here.
With the ice out, we're all looking forward to either jumping in the lake, riding on the lake, looking at the lake. You know the drill.
Boats are on the lake already.
Yes, they are. I know. We noticed this past a couple of days ago. We noticed that they were up on the lake. Hey, Walt. Everybody knows the LGA, Lake George Association. I was surprised to find out how long the organization has been around.
130 years this year, since 1885.
Oh, my age. That's perfect. That's wonderful. 1885.
1885.
And why was it formed?
Well, back then, a group of people who enjoyed the lake and liked to fish here and so forth realized that there were some pressures on the lake. People were influencing the lake in a negative way. There was garbage being dumped and ashes from steamships and other ways that the lake water quality was being threatened. So they banded together and they formed what became the first lake association in the country. It was a pioneer in that conservation era.
Wow, has it ever paid off?
I think so.
You know, let's face it, anybody that has exposure to Lake George, if you've traveled around the world, I don't care if it's Lake Geneva, I don't care if it's Lake Tahoe, Lake George is one of the most unique places on the whole planet.
It is. It's a special place. And we feel very strongly that because the LGA has been around helping to protect it for all these years, that's one of the reasons why.
Well, you know what? As human beings who we have impact, I mean, I'm sure the Hudson River at one point was a pristine body of water, right? So thank God that these people back in 1885 decided to say, hey, I don't think we should be tossing our garbage there into
Great
the lake.
foresight.
Yeah, wonderful foresight. I want to talk a bit about some of the pressures on the lake. But there's one thing that the LGA does that I want to ask you a little bit more about, and that's the floating classroom.
That is a great program.
Yeah.
We bring students out on the lake, teach them about lake ecology, about the food web on the lake. We do some scientific tests with the lake, testing how deep you can see a disc in the lake. It's called a Secchi disc reading. You can tell the clarity of the lake. And Lake George has remarkable clarity. And we also do water quality tests, and Lake George is still drinkable water. Many people don't know that, but it's rated AA special, which is the highest and best use as drinking water for that lake. So that's a very, very great designation for any water body.
You know what? It's a terrific program because I was fortunate. I grew up on the water. And if you have that bond with water early on in your life, it's, as you know, because you grew up in Thai, it stays with you your whole life. So the opportunity to expose these kids to some educational things tied to entertainment, and that appreciation will be part of them.
They become the next generation of people protecting Lake George. They really do. We instill that in them early on. They understand how the lake works. They understand how pressures that they put on it could affect it negatively, and they learn how to do things right at home in their own watershed, in their own neighborhood, so that they protect water, whether it's Lake George water or any water. So it's a great program. You know,
we've referred a couple of times to pressures on the lake. Let's discuss just briefly what some of those pressures are. I would imagine that the one that I always hear about, and I'm sure our viewers hear about, storm water runoff.
It is a big issue on Lake George. And what we try to do is we try to capture stormwater before it gets into Lake George and treat it somehow. And there's many different ways of doing that. But the problem with stormwater is that it brings with it sediment, which then brings with it nutrient particles that fuel things in the lake like algae growth, invasive plant growth, and so forth. So stormwater is not good for the lake or any water body. So we capture it in all sorts of different stormwater devices. It might be something simple like a rain guard. It might be something more complex like an AquaSwirl unit, which captures the sediment, the garbage, anything else that could get out into the lake, and then we can remove it from there much more easily than once it's out in the lake, polluting the lake.
Another one, of course, a big one, and this one I just want to clarify, salt. And people would think, oh, okay, so don't run the salt machines right on the lake roads, but the salt on the highways up in the hills affects the streams, and the streams carry it right down.
Lake George is a part of a watershed. It's the bottom part of the watershed, but all the bowl, so to speak, around the lake is streams feeding down to the lake shore. So
Right.
any place where there's paved surfaces that get salt applied to it in the winter for de-icing methods, and you have to de-ice the road
Sure,
somehow.
of course.
But that salt gets dissolved in the stormwater and it goes down into the lake. It goes down through the streams, the smallest ditches, out into the larger tributaries and out into the main part of the lake.
Right. So, again, all of the things that we do, and, I'm sure you do the same thing. If you're out in your boat and you see garbage, I stop my
Absolutely.
boat and jump in and grab the garbage.
Absolutely.
There is just something about wanting to protect that lake. So it's important to be aware that things that you might not think of, like salt on the roads up in the mountains, part of the watershed that gets taken down and inside. Hey, tomorrow's Earth Day.
Yes, it is. It's going to be a nice
And
day
you're
tomorrow.
doing something. This is
Well,
great.
we are.
What are you doing?
We're trying to help the Lake George watershed tomorrow by distributing some native plants, some native trees around the lake. We're giving away 200 native bushes to the municipal governments around the lake they can hand them out at their town clerk's office and provide that to their citizens so that they can take them home and plant native trees. Native trees are very important to a watershed. Many times we see invasive plants come in. They have negative impacts, whereas if you populate the watershed with native trees, native plants, they're what belong here. They thrive here, and they're good for keeping soils in place, filtering stormwater. They're just good for the watershed.
Well, you know what? A lot of times we think of invasive species as just being the things under the water, like the milfoils and things like that. But it's above water level too. It's in the forest.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's Phragmites, which is a weed that grows near swamps.
That's right,
there's purple loosestrife.
Right.
They have been really pushing out the whole cattail population, and Japanese knotweed, which you see all over the roadsides, really taking over, and they're very bad for the environment. They really take over. They crowd out the native plants, and they're not good for the lake.
No, they're not at all. Well, Walt, your organization does a terrific job. You're celebrating, I think, 10 years, you told me?
I am. It's amazing how fast 10 years goes.
It's also, I think, the dream job.
That's great.
Let's try that also.
Absolutely. Protecting the body of water that's at my back door, that's my view shed at home, but also something that all of my friends and family and our neighbors enjoy, and it's just a great place.
Well, we'll have you back again because in July, the mother of all fundraisers is up on the lake, which is at the Erlewest this year?
Our gala this year is at the Inn at Erlewest on July the 10th. It's
All
going
right.
to be a great night right on the lake shore. It's just a beautiful, beautiful event.
Good. We'll have you back before then so we can get some more people to that event as well.
Great.
Well, Walt, ice is out. Thanks for coming in.
Come on up to Lake George.
And I'll see you on the lake.
Great, thank you.
To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.